Hello and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host, Bryan. We're going to wrap up this week's theme exploring the genre of post-metal with another band that I don't think I've heard of before. We have Massif today. We're going to be looking at something off of their 2011 album. The song is called Nebelwand, which translates from Dutch into English as Mist Wall, which is pretty cool. Mist wall is definitely one of those terms that I'm like, yeah, dude, that's a perfect thing to build a post-metal song out of. So let's see how they go about building that out. They're certainly taking their time with this. I got 10 minutes though, so. The wood blocks off to the side are a nice choice. The delay, the light instrumentation in general, the very ambient sound of the chords. It's a very meditative state for the music to exist in right here. About 43 BPM. No, it's got to be lower than that. Well, give or take about 40 exactly. A little bit of timing inconsistency between the instruments. Pretty typical once you get down to this tempo. It's just so slow. It's a nice moodiness, especially coming in from the notes over here. We've taken that serenity earlier and added a little bit of eeriness to it. Taking on a little bit of a melancholic vibe. Partially from the chords, but Certainly the instrument timbres are tying into that heavier feeling. That slide on the bass sounded real nice. It's got a texture to it, almost as if there's a pick slide alongside it. Okay, random groove out of nowhere. A little bit of accelerando as well. Maybe not. Maybe it's just temporal slippiness. Yeah. The reverb on the lead guitar is an interesting choice. I know it's been there the entire song. They're continuing to use it in interesting ways as far as lead instrumentation goes. Very cool choke on that cymbal too. It didn't completely ring out, but there was an overtone that was left over. That sort of this high pitched ring up on the left. All right, this is one of those tracks that, yeah, the 10 minutes is necessary to tell the story that they want to tell, but there's not 10 minutes of unique music in here. So I think the analysis is going to be a bit light, especially since 6 minutes of this doesn't really have a lot of movement or change to it. We have a song here that spends the first half just building a light atmosphere. We have some very light bass work. We have some guitar to either side. Very, very minimal percussion, only in some of it too. It took a long time for the drums to come in. I think that wasn't until like minute 2 or 3 that we heard that part. And that was when the tempo was solidified too. The beginning of this song, though, for a while, I had mentioned it felt very pensive. A little bit of serenity, maybe even. It's very meditative, very calming. I enjoyed it. For a song titled Mist Wall, yeah, this is kind of how I assume walking through low-hanging clouds feels like, in a sense. Probably not the only way you could represent it, definitely not the only way. But I generally got that feeling out of it. The heavy weight of the drums coming in, though, is a very definitive change. It makes the song feel heavier and it drags more than anything. What felt serene and calming now felt a bit anxious, a weight pushed upon our shoulders that wasn't implied by the rest of the music, but is recontextualizing everything else. It is the drop of food coloring that is pervading through all of this liquid, contaminating and distorting it. It isn't long before our guitar off on the right side begins to incorporate tension, anxiety, uh, dissonance in general into its playing, as if this corruption from the drums has begun to infect it. It isn't long until we have another change, a little bit more of a melancholic twist to the chords over on the left side. It's kind of difficult to pinpoint exactly when this happens. I'm sure if you're well versed and familiar with this track, you can say, oh yeah, certainly on this bar or at this specific minute and second combination, this is when the riff changes for this instrument. This is when the riff changes for that instrument. But I didn't catch on to that the first time through. I just recognized as I'm allowing myself to absorb this sound and occasionally checking in, what's the guitar doing over here? What's the guitar doing over here? Has the drums changed at all? What's the bass working on? Focusing specifically on individual instrumentation. Somewhere in this process, oh, the emotions changed. Where's that coming from? And then I start, grilling on each of these instruments. Was it you? Was it you? Did you change this feeling? That's when you kind of land, it was you, the melancholic elements, this left guitar over here. Sometime in the past, you switched up your game. It's a very interesting evolution, working on nuance, but it allows things to creep up on you. I love that. That's not something you can do with a shorter runtime. But then it got big. Then it became metal. for a moment. Then it dips back. A little foreshadowing for what's to come, but not quite where we are yet. The rest of the instrumentation, though, that little dip of metal corrupts it just like the drums did. More tense, more melancholic, heavier, rising in volume, rising in compression. We're building into the next metal part. It doesn't sneak up on us. It doesn't surprise us. There is a visible and quick evolution, transformation into it. Whatever we saw previously with the subtle taking 5 minutes to move and explore, we're now looking at a rapid evolution. The contamination, the corruption of this song happens very fast. And now we're in the final 4 minutes of the song, give or take. Heavy, lots of tremolo picking, distorted, grungy, gritty. Still sticking with that slower pace, though. Where once this song felt like peace to me, it is anything but at this point. I don't know what it feels like. It's kind of in constant metamorphosis. There are moments that I feel pure melancholy replaced quickly with tension. Could be read as anxiety, maybe, only for that to evolve into, I don't know, depression, weight, sorrow. It's a black orb with no features, no textures, light doesn't bounce off of it. But I can see shapes of hands pushing out, distorting the spherical shape into something rigid and jagged and disjointed. A face pushes out, a triangle, a distinct spike comes out over here. A box tries to push its way out another side. It's in constant flux, not wanting to ever be what it is, and what it is formless in itself. Constantly trying on new shapes, emotions, sounds. It's oppressive negativity. I don't think it's a mistake that the song ends the way that it does. For something that starts out so calming, we've seen the negative transformation, the corruption exist across the entire track. It was always heading towards the heaviest, most abrasive sounds. I think ending the track on a more upbeat idea, the drums ramp up their intensity, technically moving to double time. I mean, it's still only like, 80 beats per minute, but it's double time compared to the 40 where we started. The drums, the guitar, well, I mean, drums too, but the guitars, the bass, they start pushing away from this purely atmospheric playing with little textures added to it and go towards this sort of breakdown sound. Pick a note, a really low, heavy note, and play a rhythm on it. We bring in the pockets to emphasize the space between them, to really lean into the weight of them until we have this deafening repetition at the end of the song that just stops abruptly. There was no way this track wasn't going to end with a unified weight. There was no way this track was going to end with a sense of calming finality, of bringing the song back down to a lower point, of having a fade out even. It was going to end at its peak. No final moments, no ramping down from the climax. We end at the top. It's where the song's been pointing the entire time. There's one last thing I want to bring up, and I think it really sells the ending of this track. Without it, I don't know that it would be as effective. The left guitar tone in the heavy section is abrasive. It is sharp, it is jagged, it is noisy. It stands in sharp contrast to the lighter, very receptive sounds we have in the lighter section, but it even stands out against the wide, resonant, grounded, bassy sounds that we have from the guitar, from the other guitar and the bass guitar. This is shrill, like a shriek. It cuts through all of the noise. The first time that we had that jump scare of the metal, it's this sound that really makes it gnarly, that catches you off guard. The heaviness, the weight, the largeness of the instruments, the volume, and just the monstrosity of the production, that is going to be a bit surprising coming from the lightness everywhere else, but it's not the part that's going to catch you off guard. It's not the part that's going to put your stank face on. It's not the part that's really going to make you think, wow, this is different. It's that guitar off on the right, piercing, slicing through all of this, heading straight for your ears. Nothing stopping it. Not only do I think it's effective in this way, but even as we continue to explore the heavier section, it's this sound that cuts through the noise. It is this very narrow pinpoint lead element against these very blunt sounds, very wide and blunt and heavy. It's the knife that somehow pierces through the stones. It's a perfect idea for this track. And it's something that, as I begin to think about it, I've seen more and more during this week, is the contrast between blunt sounds and narrow ones, sharper ones. It's something that post-metal uses a lot in order to create weight and then have a sound that can carry a melody through that. How do you take such an abrasive sound and still put an instrument front and center that captures that feeling? I mean, you could go for I don't know, jazz guitar sounds, and yeah, it's going to stand out in the mix. You can put a melody on it, bump up its presence. You can definitely make it so it's audible against all of this, but it wouldn't fit. It'd be a little out of place. But this carries weight and antagonism and abrasiveness in a lead style. It doesn't just work for the jump scare. It doesn't just work for the pure contrast of the first section. It works as contrast within its own atmosphere. Sticking with the idea of evolution, this is something that the guitar tone needs to become in order to fulfill its role in this part of the track, to be that lead instrument against this wall of sound. I find that really interesting. It's one of those observations that I've heard, the sound itself I've heard dozens of times. Like I said, this is just a thing in post-metal. I'm sure it's something we can find even in non-post-metal music where we have heavier sections, while they're still wanting to retain, an overall abrasive element. But it's just not something that's ever clicked. And it's this song that to me feels like evolution, constant metamorphosis, where I can kind of, my brain, I guess, made that leap and said, why would the guitar do this? Why would it go in that direction? And I landed on something that's a bit more universal to the genre than I was expecting. I wish I could answer what any of this has to do with a mist wall, though. The first 5 minutes, I'm kind of down with that. It works. I'm not sure about the rest, though. But, these are just my thoughts on Nebelwand from Omega Massif. What are your thoughts? Did you enjoy it? Did anything stand out to you? Is there anything you'd like to add on to what I said or correct me on? Do you have your own interpretation of this track? Let me know. Put all of that and any other thoughts you have down into the comment section. Above that, though, in the description box, you'll find a link to Linktree. It takes you here. You can find links to my music, ways to support the channel, a link to the Discord server, and so much more. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell I greatly appreciate all three of those. That wraps it up for today. I'll be back tomorrow, though, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 p.m. UTC as usual. Until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever you choose to watch my videos.